You and Nina climb up the stairs to the tower door and enter the vampire's lair. You pass through corridor after corridor, room after room. There's no sign of Mrs. West, and the air is suffocating and damp. "This place is incredible," says Nina. "From the outside it looks small, but inside it goes on and on." "Yeah," you reply. "I feel like a rat in a maze. Your aunt could be 3 feet away, and we would still miss her. Let's retrace our steps and go find Uncle Andrew. He'll know what to do." But that proves to be impossible. You are lost. The only thing you can do is keep going. After a time, you find yourself in an empty, windowless room, just like so many others that you've already passed through. But this one proves to be different. The door closes behind you. You run over and try to open it, but it's locked. Has someone been following you? That's alarming enough. But what really scares you is the ceiling. It seems to be descending, and now the floor shudders and starts to rise. At the rate of a foot a minute, you figure the floor and ceiling will meet in 8 minutes. The end. Shit. Howdy everyone, this is Dave, and welcome back to another Choose Your Own Adventure reading. It's a nice rainy day over here, so I figured I'd just check this out. Vampire Express. This came out in 1984. This is number 31 of the Choose Your Own Adventure book series, and is actually a fan suggestion, so I managed to hunt this down. So thanks again for the suggestion. So whoever's Easter present this was back in 1985, you really messed up letting this go. I've never read this before, so we will be reading it in real time together. And without further ado, here we go. You're on a train in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania, on your way to visit your Uncle Andrew. In all the world, there is no place more closely connected with vampires than these mountains. And there is no one who knows more about them than your uncle. Now that you're old enough, he feels you are ready to join him in one of his expeditions. Your goal? To prove scientifically, once and for all, that vampires exist. Go to page 2. 2 other members of the expedition share your compartment on the train. Nina, a blonde girl about your age, and Mrs. West, her aunt, a tall and very grand lady in her 60s. Around her neck, Mrs. West wears a heavy gold chain, and from the chain dangles the largest jewel you have ever seen. It is a dark blood red, and it seems to glow like a dying fire. As the train slowly makes its way up and down steep inclines and around tight curves, you take out your uncle's most recent letter and reread the last paragraph. Mrs. West and her niece may hold the key to our quest. For generations, their family has kept a painting and a jewel said to possess awesome and terrible powers. If we can use these powers, the painting and jewel should lead us to vampires. If either falls into the wrong hands, we could all be in grave danger. You must protect them and their owners at all costs. But don't worry, you will not be alone in this task. I have helped the gypsies many times in the past, so wherever you find gypsies, you will find friends. Keep safe. Andrew. Snow is falling now, and the train moves more and more slowly. In the growing darkness, the fire within Mrs. West's jewel seems to glow brighter and brighter. Suddenly she jumps to her feet, trembling and clutching her necklace. "The painting is calling me!" she cries. "It's in danger. Someone is after it." "Oh, Aunt, really?" says Nina. "You can't be serious. A painting can't talk." "Don't be so certain, my dear," says Mrs. West. "I heard it as plainly as I heard you. In any case, I must make sure it's safe." She opens the door and rushes down the corridor towards the baggage car. 15 minutes pass, and Nina begins to look worried. When Mrs. West isn't back after half an hour, she is alarmed. "I'm going after her," she says. "Will you stay in case I miss her and she returns?" She barely waits for you to nod, and then she's running toward the baggage car. Moments later, she's back, wide-eyed and panting. "I can't find her anywhere," she says. "My aunt has vanished." "I'll help you search the train," you say. trying to stay calm. "Where shall we begin?" "We could go back to the baggage car and look for clues, or we could ask other passengers if they've seen her," says Nina. "I'm so worried, I can't think straight. You decide." All right, everyone, right into our first set of choices. If you want to check out the baggage car, turn to page 4. If you want to question the other passengers, turn to page 31. I don't think we need to alarm the other passengers with this dilemma. We don't need to make a scene. So I think we're going to just head straight for the baggage car. Turn to page 4. The baggage car is gloomy and disgusting. Only one dim bulb lights the place, and the car looks as if it hasn't been cleaned in years. Nina gets down on her hands and knees and searches for clues among the dusty old crates, cartons, and suitcases. Meanwhile, you try to make sense of the footprints smudged into the grime on the floor, but there's no sign of Miss West. She seems to have vanished without a trace. You're about to give up when Nina calls your name. You make your way through the mess and find her bending over a strange-looking wooden box. "At least we know the painting's safe," says Nina, brushing the dust from her sweater and jeans. "It's kept in this box." Go on to the next page. You look closer and see that every inch of the box is covered with carved shapes. There are eyes, ears, mouths, and hands, and they look a little too real for comfort. "Nina, where did you get this weird thing?" you ask. "Do you know what the carvings mean? Or what they have to do with the painting?" "All I know is my great uncle gave it to me before he died," says Nina. "He got it from some relative in Australia, and she said it had been in the family almost forever. The box has always been with the painting, and the carvings hide secret locks. My great uncle showed me how to work them, but I've never actually seen the painting inside." "Maybe we should look at it now," you say. "I don't know," says Nina. "Do we have to?" You show her your uncle's letter. "The painting may help us find your aunt," you say. "Maybe," she replies, "but what if it does have terrible powers, and they turn out to be harmful to us? Maybe we should take your uncle's suggestion and ask the gypsies for help. We can always come back and open the box later." Okay, on to our next set of choices. If you think it's better to open the box now, turn to page 8. If you'd rather consult the gypsies, turn to page 55. So if there's anything I've learned from reading these, we are absolute big shots. We know how everything works. I don't think we need to be consulting any gypsies. I think we need to avoid any sort of snatch scenarios. So we're going to open the box now. I mean, why not? Turn to page 8. Once you've decided that the box must be opened, Nina seems to lose her fear. Instead, she feels a sudden strange panic to release the painting. Her hands dart frantically over the carvings. She touches the eye here, pulls a finger there, twists an ear. She moves so swiftly you can hardly see what's happening. Suddenly, a crack appears on the side of the box, where no seam was visible before, and Nina stumbles backwards with a shudder. "The painting," she whispers. "It wanted me to open the box. It kept making me go faster and faster." "Do you think it knows we need it?" you ask hopefully. "I don't know," she replies. "It just wanted to be free." The box opens slowly, like a clamshell, on invisible hinges, and now you can see the painting that hangs inside. It is a portrait of a handsome man and a beautiful woman, dressed in old-fashioned clothes. A single candle stands on the heavy wooden table between them, its flame casting an eerie light on their faces. Through the window behind them, you can see the full moon. The painting looks hundreds of years old, and yet the man and the woman seem ageless. Their flesh looks real, and their eyes shine with the same glow you saw in Mrs. West's jewel. They seem to stare at you with a terrible, endless hunger. With great effort, you tear your eyes away and realize the painting is moving. It strains forward like a leopard ready to pounce on its prey. Then you hear the door of the baggage car open behind you. Turn to page 48. The door of the baggage car closes, and the painting is suddenly still. You turn around, hoping to find Mrs. West, but instead you see a young man. He is wearing a bright green shirt with wide puffy sleeves. A green and blue striped bandana is tied around his head. "I am Nanash, Prince of the Gypsies," says the young man. Then you must know my Uncle Andrew, you say. More than that, I owe him my life, Nanash says simply. He asked me to watch out for you and those who accompany you, and to protect the painting in their possession. You must need me now, because the painting has called. Nina tells Nanash about her missing aunt and about the jewel. According to Uncle Andrew, it too is supposed to have great powers, you say. I know nothing about this jewel, says Nanash, but the painting I can speak. We have many legends of its magic, and your uncle believes it can destroy vampires. The man in the picture is Count Zoltan. The woman is his wife, Carmilla. I have discovered that they are on this very train, in their own private car, so you and the painting are in grave danger. He lowers his voice. My people say they are vampires. You must leave the train at once. Turn to page 86. But if they're vampires, we can't leave my aunt to them, says Nina. We can do nothing for your aunt here, says Nanash. We do not know how to use the painting's powers. Only Andrew and the Old Ones have that knowledge. The Old Ones, you say. They are the spirits who guide us, explains Nanash. They speak through Lyuba, our wise woman. If you carry the painting to our camp, we can consult them in safety. Your other choice is to contact your uncle at the next station to ask for his advice. Once we know how to use the painting, we can follow the vampires to their castle. Until then, we can only hope that Mrs. West is still alive. They keep trying to force this gypsy narrative on me, and I'm just not feeling it, bro. I think we are going to try to contact Uncle Andrew. Hopefully we can keep this bad boy safe in the meantime so we can get to the next station and whatnot. But ultimately, I want to wait and avoid this whole gypsy BS. So we'll turn to page 22. The snow is coming down very hard when you reach the station, but none of you is sorry to leave the train. You find a telephone inside, and after several tries, you finally reach your uncle. He tells you to take the painting to the inn in a nearby village and wait for him there. The snow ends early the next morning, and the sun comes out, but the temperature remains well below freezing. In the afternoon, Andrew arrives on horseback, leading mounts for you and the others, and a pack horse for supplies, equipment, and the painting. When you last saw him, your uncle was clean-shaven, but now has a bushy, silver beard. Otherwise, he's exactly as you remember him. Short, red-faced, and plump, with a fringe of white hair around his bald dome. Although he appears jolly and friendly, there is steel in his eyes. As soon as he dismounts, he fixes those strange, piercing eyes on Nina. We'll do our very best to find and rescue your aunt, he promises. Then he turns to you and adds, and I believe we will soon have proof of the existence of vampires. A few minutes later, the four of you are on your horses, riding single file up a dangerously steep and narrow mountain trail. Later, in the dark wooded valley, you hear snarls and howls behind you. You turn in your saddle. There are dozens of gray shapes looping through the trees. Wolves! Shouts Nanash. Turn to page 40. The wolves are getting closer, and your horse snorts with fear. We'll have to run for it, says Uncle Andrew. You spur your horses toward the end of the woods in safety. Behind you, you hear a horse stumble. Then there's a muffled thud. But you don't realize what's happened until Nina's riderless horse canters up beside you. Stop! You shout. Nina's been thrown! The three of you rein in your horses and swing around, but you can't see a thing. Between the time you've spotted the wolves and the moment you've turned back for Nina, a mysterious thick cloud has blanketed the woods. Turn to page 108. What's going on? You yell. What is this stuff? We call it the vampire fog, says Nanash. It appears just like that. He snaps his fingers. And people get lost in it for days. I'm afraid we may not find Nina. Keeping close together, you try to retrace your way, but the fog is so thick you can barely see your horses' heads in front of you. You keep searching, but there's no trace of her. Finally, Andrew calls a halt. I don't think we can find her now, he says, and if we're not careful, we'll get lost too. It's vitally important that we take the painting to the vampire's castle. We can return for Nina after the fog lifts. But what about the wolves, you say? Nina's on foot. The wolves will be practically helpless in this fog, says Nanash. If she climbs a tree, she has a good chance of escaping them. I'll understand if you want to stay and search for Nina, says Andrew. But if you're coming with us, you must come now. On to our next set of choices. If you stay to look for Nina, turn to page 54. If you go with Andrew and Nanash, turn to page 69.
Nice.
So I know that we have the whole chivalry thing. I'm not sure what era this is, probably the 1800s or something. I don't know. I can't really tell with the style of what these people are wearing. It's a very historically ambiguous time period. But ultimately, we are not whipped to this character, Nina. She fell off her horse, man, and that's a bummer. We got a mission we got to go to. She may come back as a crazy character, villain later or something. I don't know. Ultimately, though, I think we're going to bail on Nina. I have no other reason other than I just want to hang out with Andrew and Nanash and actually get to the castle and get the story going. So, I would expect them to do the same if I had fallen off my horse. So without further ado, we're turning to page 69. You call Nina's name one last time, then sadly turn to follow Nanash and Andrew toward the vampire's lair. When the fog is far behind you, you round a bend, and then there it is, a dark and evil-looking ruin, silhouetted against the evening sky. The ramparts and battlements are crumbling, and only one of the original towers remains standing. When you reach the castle, you find the gate closed and locked. Andrew tugs on your rusty belt chain, but all you hear is laughter. You look more closely at the run-down wall. It's full of chinks and cracks, and you think you might be able to climb it. If I can get over the wall and open the gate from the other side, we can attack the vampires now, you say. Too risky, says Nanash. Better to wait till morning, when the vampires must rest, says Andrew. They're probably right, but you're tired of waiting. Alright, so we got another set of choices. If you take their advice and wait, turn to page 90. If you climb the wall when Andrew and Nanash are asleep, turn to page 95. I mean, I'm sure they are right, but also the book is right. I'm tired of waiting. But, it is not safe to go ahead without Andrew, at least. We cannot just be acting like that much of a hot shot, because every time you act like a hot shot, something ends up going wrong. So I think I will take their advice and wait and turn to page 90. The three of you build a fire and cook a hearty meal of sausages, beans, and pan-baked bread. You volunteer to take the first watch while the others sleep. You're not worried about staying awake. At this point, it seems safer than closing your eyes. Around 11 o'clock, you hear feet slapping on stones, pebbles clicking, and a shuffling noise, like a dog worrying a bone. Go on to the next page. Silently, you remove a flashlight from the pack of supplies Andrew brought along. Then you creep toward the sounds. When you judge you're close enough, you switch on the light. The beam sweeps past a pile of broken stones and debris, and catches a little man. Bent, misshapen, and incredibly ugly. For a moment you stare at one another. Then he scuttles away, turns a corner and disappears. If you follow him, you might find another way into the castle. Then again, you might find yourself in a trap. Boom, more choices. If you return to the campsite, turn to page 6. If you go after the little man, turn to page 50. So yeah, I don't really feel like chasing this little guy. I feel like he's going to lead us into some drama, and he might get us killed. So I think we need to return to the campsite and regroup. Turn to page 6. At midnight, your watch is over. You wake Nanash and tell him about the little man. He could have been a spy, says Nanash. And then again, it could have been a trap. Maybe the vampires were trying to separate us. Or maybe he was trying to show us a way into the castle. He's still considering the possibilities when you fall fast asleep. Laughter. Monstrously loud laughter. Are you dreaming? Someone is shaking your shoulder. Leave me alone, you shout. Wake up! Wake up! It's Uncle Andrew. It will be dawn soon, he says. I found a way to open the gate, and I've taken the painting out of its case. We must carry it inside now, so we can attack the monsters at daybreak, when they're most vulnerable. You sit up, rubbing your eyes. What time is it? You ask. Nearly 6, says Uncle Andrew. Quickly now, through the gate. Andrew carries the painting before him like a shield, and you and Nanash follow close behind. Inside the wall there's a small courtyard, and across the courtyard rises the tower. A stone staircase winds up the outside of the tower wall to a door about halfway to the top. Framed against it are a man and a woman dressed in evening clothes. The woman wears Mrs. West's jewel, which shines with a horrid red light. Turn to page 28. Count Zoltan and Countess Carmilla, whispers Nanash.
Welcome to our home,
says the Count.
We thought you might try to approach us at this hour. But don't you know that the painting is now helpless against us? My wife wears the bloodstone, the precious jewel that was lost to us these many centuries. It is the one thing that can protect us from the painting. You are dead, mortal fools.
Andrew seems to be trembling with fright. But then you realize it's the painting that's shaking. Hurry, he gasps. Grab the painting. Hold tight. You and Nanash rush to his side and grasp the frame. The painting feels alive. It bucks like a horse. Then streaks of colored light leap from its surface, surrounding it in a whirlpool of lightning. Gold, silver, violet, green, and blue lightning bolts strike out at the vampires. But the red glow from the bloodstone not only protects them like a force field, it batters the blazing light back toward the painting. The evil red glow closes in, presses down. Turn to page 63. The painting needs more help from us, Andrew shouts. You must believe you can win. You must trust the powers the painting can release. You do believe you can stop the vampires. You concentrate your entire being on the thought, and the spreading flood of red light slows, stops. It's a standoff, and it seems to go on forever. All of you, humans and vampires, are so locked in battle, you don't notice the arrival of day until the sun rises over the castle wall and fills the courtyard with brilliant light. The painting seems to drink it in. The jewel grows dull, and the red glow fades. Now the vampires are terrified. They try to retreat into the tower, but before they can escape, 2 brilliant bolts of pure white energy surge from the painting. There's a tremendous blast and 2 white flashes, and where the vampires once stood, there's nothing but sulfurous smoke. Turn to page 80. You search the castle for Mrs. West and find her lying on a stone slab. The destruction of the vampires seemed to have released her from a trance. Soon she's as strong as ever, and complaining. Andrew, you old toad, she says. What took you so long? Where's my niece? And my jewel? And my painting? Andrew begins to explain about losing Nina in the fog, when suddenly there's no need. Nina herself is standing in the doorway. She dashes over and gives her aunt a big hug. Then she describes her escape. I managed to climb a tree before the wolves could find me, she says. When they gave up and the fog lifted, I climbed down and found my horse. I set off after you right away, but I seem to have missed all the excitement. She pretends to pout, but she can't help laughing. Meanwhile, Andrew has retrieved his camera from the pack of supplies. Hold it right there, Nina. The rest of you too, he says. I want some pictures for my records. There's a flash. Then another flash. Then another. Andrew doesn't have to remind anyone to smile. You've never felt happier. Well, that was a pretty pleasant read through. We actually got some vampire action, got to kill them, got to, celebrate afterwards. Everything seemed to have worked out. The Mrs. West was fine, and her and Uncle Andrew seemed to be, kind of a clap in cheeks, perhaps. Then Nina shows up, so no one died, like everything's cool. So I guess we won this one. All right, so everyone, that is all I have for this video. If you enjoyed this content, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, have a good one.